call the meeting to order. This is the work session for June 4th, 2012 of the River Edge Mayor and Council. I'll read the Open Public Meetings Act statement. New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to advance notice of and attend any meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. Gotta catch my breath. Keep running around. Stopped on the boulevard for speeding. You trying to get here?
For the mayor badge?
Huh?
For the mayor badge?
No, I just got a stern warning. I heard that Councilman Porco got stopped last week.
That's untrue. That did not happen.
It didn't?
Nope.
What the officer said.
You know those officers.
Anyway, we've caused notice of the meeting to be published, having the date, time, and place posted in the Borough Hall. Notice is sent to the record in the Ridgewood News. We have exits in the front of the council chambers and one in the rear. We're being recorded by sound and by video. An accurate record of what occurs is for protection of the public. If you wish to be heard and be seen, you can come to the microphone where we will record your voice as well as your the video. Can I have a roll call?
Councilman Murphy?
Here.
Councilman Porter?
Here.
Councilman Porco?
Here.
Councilman Vignani?
Here.
Councilman Guadalupe?
Here.
Councilman Papaleo?
Here.
And Mayor Mastelli.
All right. President. Borough Administrator topics. Alan, complete streets policy.
Thank you, Mayor. If I may, I've sent a memorandum to the Mayor and Council with regard to the complete streets policy. This is a recommendation of the State of New Jersey Department of Transportation. Rob Costa, your borough engineer, and I sat through a 4-hour presentation on hard chairs, but it was very worthwhile in terms of presenting the reasons for having a complete streets policy. We've raised this issue at a work session prior to this. I have given you several DOT models, 3 policies from around Bergen County, and a website which has about 24 other policies from around the state. Tonight, I would just like direction from the Mayor and Council on how you would like to proceed. I can provide a recommendation to the Mayor and Council after consulting with Rob Costa, Police Chief Caridi, perhaps others, and we can come to you with a recommendation on what we feel might be best for the borough, and you can discuss that. Some towns have offered this up to the planning board as part of their master plan, their re-examination, so they've gotten the planning board involved. You could still seek their approval on this plan. I'd just like to know your preference, whether you want to discuss it here as a council of the whole. And then we can proceed to try and put something in place for the borough.
Alan, this complete streets policy just has to be by resolution?
Yes.
Okay. It's relatively an easy form resolution that can be drafted?
Yes, and we have many samples.
Okay. Well, it doesn't seem like it's very difficult to do.
Question?
Any discussion?
If I may, to the mayor, I believe you have to draft an ordinance.
Well, some of the ones from around the state are resolutions.
But I think the stuff they handed us at that seminar were actual ordinances.
Yeah.
The 2 models in the book are resolutions.
Some were from Missouri, which I'm not sure
Well,
we need that.
Maywood is not Missouri.
It's an ordinance, right?
No, it's a resolution.
I think to get points, again, you know what?
Yeah.
To get the points from the DOT, I think we need an ordinance on this.
Okay. Yes.
Mayor.
Sure.
You can simply pass a resolution, and all that means is that you agree with it. However, if you pass it by ordinance, you get extra points on every application that you do for grant funds from the state, not just DOT. Every agency of the state recognizes that you are part of the the Complete Streets community. What that means that you have to do is you have your borough engineer and your police department survey roads, sidewalks, and all sorts of safety and pedestrian issues within your town. And when you apply for an application to improve any of those areas, you must design the project to be pedestrian, bicycle, and auto-friendly. And you try to correct whatever the problems are for either the pedestrians or bicycles or cars. And the reason for doing that is to encourage municipalities to completely engineer streets when they are doing a project. For instance, you may have a road that has a sight distance problem or a bad curve that you can't see around, and they ask that you consider that when you are redoing that road. And if you are applying for grant money for those projects and you have a Complete Streets program, it gives you 10 extra points on the application. And sometimes that's the difference between being funded or not.
All right. Any further discussion? Can we ask our borough attorney to put this in the form of an ordinance? Do I have a motion for that?
I would make a motion to do that.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yes, there's a couple.
Go ahead, Ed.
Are the criteria hard written into these policies about the engineer, like for site plans or for your design plans?
You decide what the criteria in the ordinance is going to be.
The two that they handed out, I'm trying to think who was doing the seminar, because they were working for the county. One was very vague, and the other one that they gave out was very specific.
Because is it going to require then for you to issue waivers or from the design stand? How is that going to work going forward on other projects?
I'll give you for instance, and this is an easy one. You have a road that's narrow, and all of a sudden you come to a bottleneck. And theoretically, by Complete Streets design, you should widen it to the same width as the rest of the road if you're going to pave it. However, you don't own that right away. So your engineer simply says the borough doesn't have the property, doesn't own enough property to widen, and therefore he creates the exclusion and simply writes up in a report that you will do everything that you can in that area to make the site distance appropriate. For instance, if residents are right on the property line and they're growing 5-foot-tall bushes, you will ask them to remove them. But you decide what those criteria are when you do the ordinance, and then you can exempt yourself from them by doing something else instead. And there are samples of the ordinances on the Complete Streets policy website.
Okay.
It's going to make you think and try to do it better.
Yeah. In our package, there was the resolution from Ridgewood, there was the resolution from Emerson, and there was the resolution from Maywood.
And the reason for that is DOT applications are all being announced as we speak.
Yeah.
And one of the questions on the application says, are you involved in Complete Streets program? Have you passed a resolution? Because that's the first step. And anybody who says yes is going to get 10 extra points on the application now. So everybody's jumping on the bandwagon to put themselves in a better light.
How did this come out of my
But your recommendation is to do this by ordinance?
Well, do the resolution now.
Yeah, okay.
And then give your attorney the opportunity to create a thoughtful ordinance.
All right. It looks like that all three resolutions simply mention three components of the Complete Streets policy. One is pedestrian bicycle facilities, public transit facilities is the second one, and the third one is to have the engineering study done.
Right.
So, what's your pleasure? Do a resolution followed by an ordinance?
Yes, okay, one more question.
Go ahead, Ed.
Mr. Costa, we have to do an engineering study? It says, do we need to do a formal study where you have to evaluate every street or?
No, I don't think you have to.
Yeah.
I think what you got to do is pinpoint specific streets. Like Sal and I were talking about this after the seminar. The ones that came to mind, maybe Fifth, because it's much wider at a certain section between Howland and Continental that could tie into the park. If we could get some bicycle lanes or something on there. and maybe Boca. Anywhere we could tie maybe the parks into it, but certainly not gonna, I can't imagine that you're gonna go out and, again, it was such a pushback, because you had the county engineers at this, who in their mindset, want to make the roads as wide as possible and push as much traffic through as they possibly can. Then you had this group saying, well, we want to quell the traffic, bring it down, calm it, and then add the component where you want to bring in pedestrians and bicycles. I guess the closest is probably Oroville, where they put in the middle median with the two double yellow lines, with the painted islands and so on and so forth. But they didn't go to the last step to get a bicycle lane in there. And I guess a lot of this is coming out of Montclair. I can't think of the name of the street in Montclair that they redid. It was like a rebirth down there with the restaurants. And that's where the push is. The planner from, I think, Montclair and the engineering group got together with this complete streets. And now they're trying to make this, I guess, universal with the federal government, to try to put a policy throughout the United States. Alan, am I sort of on it, or?
Anything else, Ed?
Sorry.
No.
No? Alan?
Mayor, we've received the guidance to do it by resolution followed by an ordinance, but I'm still interested in guidance on content and how that will be determined. Do you want a small group, a recommendation? Do you want the council to pick one? What's the pleasure of the council in terms of actually looking at the content and of the resolutions and coming back with something? As Rob mentioned, there are different versions out there. You know.
There were actually 3 sample ordinances from DOT.
Al, did you have something?
How busy is the planning board right now?
But I don't believe this policy is going to apply to on-site projects. It'll be
No, but maybe they can
for-
make a recommendation.
Or just, or let Mr. Costa meet with the planner.
Yeah, that would work.
If we can, Mr. Murray, maybe recommend that maybe the subcommittee with Alan, maybe,
Well, we already have a traffic and safety committee, right? We already have a committee for this. Not that it's met this year, but we have a committee already established for, streets and roads and pedestrian things. So we could refer to that committee. Alan?
I was hoping for an expedited process so that we could have the resolution done in time for some of the applications that we were making this year. I know traffic and safety meets monthly or...
well, but the resolution is more endorsing a philosophy or a policy, correct?
Yeah, the
So I don't see an issue doing a resolution. I think the problem is when we go to an ordinance, we want to make sure the ordinance is crafted to make sure it's not going to be a problem.
almost immediately.
Yeah, it doesn't look like the resolution is that difficult. It basically, all of the sample resolutions that were provided list 3 policies that should be studied further by a complete engineering review. And the policies are pedestrians, transit, and cyclists. As long as our resolution addresses those 3 issues, it should be sufficient. So, if we could have a motion for Sam to draft the resolution,
I make a motion for Sam to draft the resolution.
we get a second,
I'll second that.
and we can have any further discussion, and let's take a roll call.
Councilwoman Murphy?
Yes.
Councilman Court?
Yes.
Councilman Porco?
Yes.
Councilman John?
Yes.
Councilman Bottomoli?
Yes.
Councilman Papalaris?
Yes.
This is just a resolution, you said?
Just a resolution. All right. Next on the
Mayor.
Borough Administrator topics, yes.
Are we going to send it to the subcommittee to look at the idea of an ordinance for a later council meeting in the year?
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. We'll do that, once the resolution gets adopted.
The Traffic and Safety Committee hasn't met in years. I would
So they should be well
There's never been
prepared to
I
meet.
guess there's never been a...
They've had enough rest.
I would recommend that it go to a committee comprised of Mr. Costa, Mr. Merman, our planner, and our borough administrator. And that way, maybe we can expedite the process a little bit more, rather than having to rely on getting our citizens together in a committee that hasn't met, and God only knows if they'll actually come
Yeah, but,
together to meet.
That recommendation doesn't include the police department, it doesn't include our traffic officer.
Well, that's fine, you can include Chief Peretti or his appointee, but
That's why we already have a traffic and safety committee.
that doesn't mean...
But then again, if we have an ordinance that affects something, that may affect the site plan, it would have to be referred to the planning board also.
Well, the planning board just,
Would
they
review it.
they apply the ordinances as written.
Well, no,
right?
but if there's an ordinance which would affect either the master plan or site plan ordinance, which this may well,
Mhm.
I think you'd have to get you should get their input.
Hey, I don't care.
On a completed ordinance, not in drafting the ordinance, but once the ordinance is written.
Mhm.
they
I
need
would
to
think you
review
would
it.
want to refer the ordinance to the planning board for their comments.
All right. No problem. Number 2, grant applications, Kinderkamak Road and Midland Avenue. We have our grant consultant here, we have our borough engineer here. Would you like to come up and give us the status of, and your recommendation as to these proposed applications?
Well, first of all, the application that we submitted recently for the Oak Avenue Drainage Project, as I'm sure Alan can attest, it made it through the district office with a recommendation for approval, and it's now down in Trenton with the director at the local aid office, who's about to send it to the commission for funding.
So that's a good sign.
Yeah, they're all good signs. I believe they sent a letter. Alan, did you receive a letter?
No, not
From Mike
yet.
Russo? You did not?
Not yet.
Okay, because they told me it was mailed. I'll have to ask them to fax a copy. But telling us that it had made it through the district review, and it was now on the list for applications to be funded. So that's a good thing, except we don't know when.
Right.
The cutoff date for this discretionary round is the end of this month, June 30th. And then the applications go en masse to the commissioner, who reviews them again and sends them on to the governor. He occasionally pulls applications from the pile, but it would have to be a very rare circumstance. And they let the money out, first come, first served, and whoever has the highest score gets the first round and so forth and so on. But I'm very hopeful that eventually we'll get the funding. Could be 2 months, it could be 5 months, you know. But anyway, we've made it past the big hurdles. So that's the first thing.
Question. Is that grant a reimbursable grant, or do we have to?
They're all reimbursed.
So we would be able, so we can go forward with the project if we had to and get reimbursed?
No. You cannot go forward until you receive an approval from them. Once you receive an approval, then you can go forward. If you go forward before that, you're on your own. You can't be reimbursed after the work has started and you have no approval.
We would need their authorization to go to bid. I guess it would be treated like local aid.
It is. Well, it
So you'd have to
actually
send
is
it down.
locally.
Yeah, I'm saying, well, but it's not the normal.
So we're potentially telling these people on Voorhees, we not mean to get to this till next year.
I
The
believe...
plans are ready to go.
But
right
if she
now.
said
Yes.
5 months, we're already in June,
But
so.
I believe that you will hear earlier than that, but I don't want to promise you something, and it may take 4 or 5 months. But the only reason I say this is because all of this money, their money, has to be spent by them this year. Come July 1st, they go into the next budget year. So I doubt if it'll be 5 months, because July's right around the corner. On the other hand, they're not going to release any of them right now, because just before July 1st, we have the typical state budget fight. And everybody holds everybody hostage. And they're not going to let go of the last discretionary dollar from this year till the next one is in place. The end of this round is June 30th for a reason, because the money's supposed to be allocated by then. And I believe you will hear sooner than later, but I can't promise it. I want you to understand the parameters of what goes on in Trenton, and I'm sure...
What's
you do.
the construction schedule on that project? How long do you think it was going to?
I mean, the first phase, just doing the inlets in the street, maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So it's not going to be long. If we get all the money and do all the work, you're probably looking at tops 2 months.
If we get the grant in a timely fashion, you can get that project into the ground this year. And that's what we've been pushing for.
Outstanding.
Now, maybe there's one.
It's not going to do any.
Alan, that money has been set aside, or do you have to?
Bond it.
Well, we
Bonded,
have an
bond
ordinance
council.
on it. Yeah, we have an ordinance in
So we
place
don't have
on
to
it.
bond it, so that saves us time.
It's already,
We have the
already
authority
approved that
to
as
spend.
capital, that's
Yeah.
what, but I'm saying,
So
if it becomes an issue of delaying this till next year, the residents down there are going to go do another wet season with...
I would just give them
problems
Marlene's
to address.
home phone number and her cell phone number. I mean, that's how I would handle that.
Well, if you had given it to me earlier in the year, you may have had it already, what can I tell you? But these discretionaries usually turn around fast, because they're unusual projects that affect a lot of residents. They understand that in Trenton when we send the applications down, and they try to move them in a timely fashion. It's just right now, we're in that awful period that I call the yearly budget crunch and problem. So I don't think they're going to allocate it before June 30th. They're going to hold on to it so that they have discretionary funds in case there's that period where there's a standoff about the budget, and in case some town encounters a real emergency, like a major cave-in under houses or something in a street, and then the state can actually give them money in a few days. But other than that, I think shortly after the 1st of July, you will hear. And Rob is ready to go. The plans are literally on the shelf. It's all been designed. The fellow in my office that does this type of DOT application actually came out of the DOT. Rob sent him a copy of the plans. Al said the plans would go through in a heartbeat, the way they are, no corrections. They'll be reviewed and rubber stamped, because Rob did a good job on it. So,
Can you say that a little louder, Marlene?
Rob did a very good job on
And
it.
you're not on my payroll, correct?
No.
Thank you.
I only know you since you're this big, but I can't tell them that.
But Mr. Costa's fees aren't reimbursable under the grant, though, right?
Excuse me?
Mr. Costa's fees aren't
Yeah.
reimbursable under the grant.
Some of them are.
Maybe the inspection, right, not the design.
Yes, the
You know, I don't
testing
know
and the
about-
inspection.
I don't know about the design. It could be with discretionary.
No.
Us, no?
No. Nothing before the bid. Anything from the bid on, yes. His fees can be reimbursed under the grant.
All right, Marlene, how about the Kinderkamak Road streetscape?
Okay. The streetscape applications were just announced about a week ago, and the deadline is July 17th. And I'm going to tell you something unusual. I don't think you should apply for it. I don't think you're ready this year. And I think that the competition for this $10 million pot, because that's all that's in it statewide this year, I think the competition is going to be horrendous. You're going to be going against municipalities that have never gotten streetscape dollars before. The push is going to be to give the money to new towns, not people that have streetscapes built already with grant money. And the application process has changed dramatically for this year. This is a federal application with federal requirements, and frankly, we ran into a couple of snags when we did the first several phases with some historic sites and whether you have all the right-of-way to take the sidewalk right up to the edge of the building and so forth. And I think, personally, if I lived here and this was my town and, you asked my opinion, I would say this isn't the year for you to be in it. Because you have to do all of your homework first, and there are really people who have plans on the shelf for their streetscapes. They have all the easements in place. I don't know at this point if you need to acquire any more easements. Do you know, Alan?
No, I don't know. Rob would know
I wouldn't.
better than I
I don't
would.
think we need any easements.
Well,
Everything's designed to
Yeah, no,
basically
but-
to the Oroville border.
Yeah, but you remember what we ran into the last time with the building
Well, you still have
fronts
to do you have to do the historic
and then the historic
categorical
review. Exclusions,
exclusions.
yeah. So, truthfully, by July 17th, I don't think we could do all of that. Plus the fact you're going to be competing against a heck of a lot of towns. We're hearing that almost half of the municipalities in the state are applying for streetscapes. Now, if you tell me you want to do it anyway and you think that you can get all of this work done beforehand, we'll take it on. But it's going to be a tough competition to be in. Streetscapes are funded for the next 5 years. It's a 5-year cycle. I would say, let all of the wannabes go this round, do your due diligence, get everything figured out, figure out if you want to finish to the Oradell border and then go south and pick up the two ends, and really set it up in your minds on paper, have your attorney research to see if easements are needed at the frontages of businesses, because that was our dilemma last year, or last round. And then go in next year, after all of these guys have crowded the line this year. That would be my advice. And, you know, you can take it or leave it. Because this is going to be a gangbang, guys. And if they try to stretch the money as far as they can make it go with all of the applications, people are going to get like $100,000. Where can you go with $10 million in 300 municipalities, you know? It's nothing. Whereas when we did it the last time and there were only 40 or 50 applications, you know, you get a grant of $500,000, $350,000, and you can do some work. If you get $100,000, what are you going to do, 2 blocks? I mean, that's my professional advice.
All right, any comments? No? Did you have one other?
Well, I was going to talk to you about Midland
Avenue?
Sidewalk.
Right.
And also your municipal aid application, if you wish. Last time I was here, I told you that we expected from the DOT several programs. We expected pedestrian safety, school safety, safe routes to schools, the discretionary, the TEs, transportation enhancements. Well, the state so far has announced the TEs, the transportation enhancements, and nothing else. But if you go on the website, they show you their budget for this year. Pedestrian safety is there, but it has no funding. So they did not fund it. They did not fund school safety. The only thing that will be available for the Midland Avenue sidewalks is safe routes to schools, which is expected in September. They're announcing right after Labor Day. That's a federal program with different rules than pedestrian safety. It's harder to get. The projects aren't as big as pedestrian safety was, and I think we certainly could qualify the Midland Avenue sidewalks, but we'd never qualify the whole length of Midland Avenue. We would be able to probably get a grant for the sidewalks in front of the school property. I had a conversation with Rich Lovelace today from the district office, the person who has to review the applications, and he said to me he had ridden past to look at it after I asked about it, and he said, you have a problem there because you've got some large older trees right on the curb line in front of the school area. And he said, I know that there are residents who will probably scream bloody murder if you go to cut those trees down. But he said there is a solution to it, and it's kind of what we had been talking with Rob about. On Continental Avenue, you wound sidewalk around old trees, and it worked out well.
Yeah. And then they cut the trees down after that.
Yeah, well, but you could certainly do that. You could certainly do that over there. But my suggestion would be to do it a little bit differently. I would suggest you contact the school and ask them if they would have a problem with moving their fence back several feet so that you could put the sidewalk between the trees and the fence. And this way you wouldn't have to wind it around. The other thing is if you wind sidewalk around or if you put it at the curb, you have to make it 6 foot wide by DOT regulations. And then you're going to have an issue. You're going to have transitions and it's going to look stupid and it'll probably kill the trees anyway. But certainly we could qualify you for a grant for sidewalk there. But it would only be the length of the school property if you're using a Safe Routes to School application. That may not be what you had wanted, but there's an upside to that. If you're going to do a Safe Routes to School application, you probably have other areas in the town where you have unsafe crossings or issues that you'd like to address for school children crossing as well. You could put them all on one Safe Routes to School application and say town-wide pedestrian and school student safety, and you could address more than one location. So that's the upside of it. You got something, right, Alan? I see you shaking your head.
Yes. Chief Caridi and I were talking today. The police department has identified Woodland and Elm intersection as one location. Back in 2007, when I think we were looking at this program, there was a location on Wayne.
I remember that,
There may have been
yeah.
there's a paper street, I think, that goes to the junior high school. So we would like the police department and I would like to sit with you and talk about some of these other
Sure,
locations
you
that
could
are
do
a concern.
townwide project,
Yeah.
and you could address several locations. That would make it a stronger application as well, and that fits in with complete streets, because that's one of the things they're looking for. So the fact that you're doing complete streets would get you more points on a Safe Routes to School application.
And that application is not
Not out yet,
but it's not due until September?
No, September is when they're going to announce, and then they usually give you 6 weeks to do that
Okay.
application.
So there's time between now and then to
Absolutely.
get all this together?
Do your planning, let Alan sit with the police chief, gather up all the intersections that you feel you really have a problem on, and then Rob and I can go look at them and strategize how we're going to do them, and when the application comes out, I'll let you know. They have their own resolution that you have to pass to do the application. Of course, that's federal money as well. But
All right.
I think it would make a good project.
Well, any comments from council on this application?
I think it's a good idea.
Anybody else?
I think we should definitely go forward with this, but I had a question. We were going to look into Fifth Avenue.
Yeah, Rob talked to me about the Fifth Avenue municipal road application.
That came up during our budget review as part of the street resurfacing program, and the borough engineer had indicated that we could, as we've done in the past, file an application for curbs, sidewalk, driveway apron, street resurfacing, as we've done on Continental and Howard, in phases. And
We just keep doing it as
keep
we
doing
we
that,
get the money.
making application.
And we
for
just
that.
keep doing as much as...
And I
the
can make
state
a
gives us.
suggestion on that, too. I think it's a great application, and it'll score very well. But after July 1st, when the new state budget comes in, we have discretionary again. So put in a municipal aid application for the first phase of the road. And then after that application has been filed, follow it up with another discretionary. Unless you have something else in town that's more important, like Oak Avenue was. But then, by the end of the year, do a discretionary application for Fifth Avenue. They move faster. You might get the approval for both of them and be able to do a much larger chunk of the roadway. It's what I call multi-sourcing a project. We go two places from two different pots of money that don't compete with each other to try to get funds to do a larger piece of the roadway.
Ed?
What did we get for local aid this year?
146,
Yeah,
500.
what project are we doing? That's for Howland.
From the end of Howland, where we stopped with the traffic light, to roughly Bogart.
Okay, so, and every town got about 146, 148?
Almost every town, I believe, got
Yeah,
146.
because I saw the list.
So you know,
Yeah.
would you like to know why?
They took the number divided by the towns, and came up with that number.
Well, it's
Yeah,
usually,
pretty much.
150,000 is the cap in Bergen County. And the gentleman that had to
Some
make...
towns get 200.
Yeah.
Garfield,
Well,
Paramus
they're-
got
no,
more
no, no,
than
they're distressed cities.
Battlebrook. I'm just saying,
They're
some
only-
Bergen towns do get 200.
Yeah, but that's because they're distressed cities, and the other half of their money comes out of the distressed city pot. That's Hackensack and Fairview and Garfield.
But those just came out, so the local aid grant won't come out until next May.
The applications just came out.
They're not-
For next, yes, for next...
No, but we just got...
You got a letter.
We got a letter, yeah.
About municipal aid.
I mean, the thought process, again, this is up to the council, the thought process is to do similar to what we did on Howland. I mean, that project's been going on for, it's got to be maybe 6 years, 7 years, but we're almost done. So we almost completed from Kindercamack Road to the Paramus border. So maybe we do the same thing with...
But what I'm
with
telling
that.
you, we'll do it in half the time or maybe less.
Well, you're better than me, so you should.
No.
All I can tell you
I'm older.
from experience with Rich Lovelace, I asked him for discretionary, and he laughed at me. He said, "Rob, good try, but no, not this time." But if we can get it, if you can get it, I think
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
I think that it's a smart strategy. Since it's a major project, and you would be picking at it forever, let's multi-source it and put the application in a couple of different places, and then if you get the 2 grants, the discretionary always moves faster because they do that 3 times a year. So that, at the end of the year, that application would probably get approved about the same time as your municipal aid application. You can combine the 2 pots and bid a much bigger project.
And if we can paint a bicycle lane on Fifth, maybe those points will get even higher.
Yeah, and the cap is
And
back
then-
to 150 again
and
this
then
year, so.
we-
But there's
our
no
points go
cap
up.
on the discretionary. We can do the application for the 150 in the regular round, and the other round, we can ask for 250 or 300,000. And then you
maybe-
put them together and you got half your road.
And maybe that street, not that you want to paint a ton of lines on that street, but it's wide enough that if you paint some of them, it might bring the street down to more of a residential look than what it is right now. Because right now, it's extremely wide for what you have going on there.
Well, if that's one of them that you look at with the
I'm just
planning
thinking
for
just to-
complete streets,
Not to come
and
in...
you say so on
Right.
your application.
Not to come in with traffic quelling measures and whatnot, but again, it's probably 36 feet, might be wider than 36 feet by the church and stuff, much wider.
Good idea.
It's thinking outside the box, so I think.
Any other,
It's pretty much
any
right.
other projects that you want to mention?
You've got the letters announcing open space in Bergen County
Right.
Historic. We've never talked about that, or you haven't talked about it with me. I don't know if you want us to consider anything with that. I think Alan usually does them in-house.
Yeah.
Mayor, we distributed the open space to our boards, commissions, committees, and
Mhm.
we're waiting to see whether anything comes back. Generally, if they have something in mind, they let us know early on as part of the budget season so that we can make sure we have a match available for those grants. We hadn't heard anything, during the season about those, so we'll have to wait and see.
Well, if your historic group comes up with anything, you don't need the match, because right now New Jersey Historic Trust is out there, and you can match that against the county, and then you don't need a match.
Well, Alan, do we need a motion or a resolution for bundling these Safe Streets to School locations together and to continue with the process?
Yeah, I would just like a motion to authorize Capital Alternatives to do the application for Safe Streets. We will do a resolution before the application is submitted
Right.
for the mayor and council. This would just allow us to put that resolution together and allow them to do their work on the Safe Streets.
I'll make a motion to get that done.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, can I have a roll call?
Councilman Menson?
Yes.
Councilman Ford?
Yes.
Councilman Porco?
Yes.
Councilman McMillan?
Yes.
Councilman Barbone?
Yes.
And Councilman Cavalera?
Yes.
All right, good. So we're going to go forward with the Safe Streets to School application, get that all in order, and then we'll adopt a formal resolution sometime at the end of the summer.
Right. And the only thing with your complete streets, if you get these applications, and on the application, we said you are adopting complete streets policy, by the time you get the award for that project, the grant, and you go to bid, you have to have the ordinance in place.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
I mean, we're talking down the road.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you want to do anything about the TE, the transportation enhancement, or let it go this year?
On the streetscape, I'm not hearing a motion for that. If they want to discuss that, I'll have to
Okay.
provide them with maintenance costs, which they had asked for.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
I think we're probably going to take your advice. to
Okay.
Wait
Sounds-
till
Sounds good to me.
it's not so, there's not so much competition.
Yeah, unless we're going to do whatever.
Okay.
Whatever the council wants me to do, I'll do.
We'll-
Rob, anything? No?
I don't know, I don't think there's any problems. My phone hasn't rang all weekend or anything, so I haven't heard anything. No news is good news.
All right, good.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Marlene.
All right, thank you very much.
Larry,
Thank you. Thank
If I
you.
could ask Mr. Costa one question before he leaves. What's going on at the intersection of Webb and Fifth there with the pipe sticking out of the ground? Have you seen it? The
Webb?
gas pipe? Yeah,
There's
the
a
manhole.
huge,
The manhole is off and there's an aluminum pipe sticking out of the
5-foot
ground. PSE&G was there the Thursday before Memorial Day weekend
there's cones around it.
digging, yeah.
Don't know, but I'll find out. If it's gas, Bruce Broski.
I'm assuming it's gas.
He knows.
Denise knows, okay.
Oh, he was taking a walk, and the lady on the corner said, at that gas mill for months. She's been
Yeah.
complaining. They've been back and forth. They claimed they couldn't find anything. So I guess whatever they're doing now, I guess they're doing...
Thank you.
She said it comes into her bedroom, it comes into the whole thing.
No, I assume there was gas, I just want to know if they're going to go one step further than a pipe sticking out of the middle of the street.
Bruce Brodsky is in charge. I'm actually going to see him this week on another matter, and I'll definitely bring it up. I didn't know anything about it, but I will find out, and then if you want, I'll email out to the council if I have any information back from them.
Appreciate it.
All right?
Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Good night.
All right, the next issue, Alan?
Yes, we listed Community Development Block Grant representatives and alternate. Denise, do you want to give us some details on when this is up and the
We need
appointment
to put a
process?
resolution on by the next meeting, Mayor, they spoke with you about.
Right.
We need a resolution appointing the representative and an alternate.
And it's
then a letter
yeah.
from you.
It's my understanding that council picks one representative and an alternate, and then the mayor appoints one representative and an alternate. Okay.
So I don't
So
know
we
if
can
that-
open the floor for discussion on council's recommendation.
I would make a motion to put forth a resolution to keep Mr. Arakilian and Ms. Carroll, who are presently serving as our representatives, to remain so as the, Mr. Arakilian as our representative and Ms. Carroll, Della Carroll as the alternate.
All right.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All right, roll call.
Councilman Murphy?
No.
Councilman Ford?
Yes.
Councilman Porco?
Yes.
Councilman McMillan?
Yes.
Councilman Bartoloni?
Yes.
And Councilman Papalario?
No.
All right, that passes.
Thank you, Mayor.
And as to the mayor's appointment, I am appointing myself.
And any alternate, Mayor?
Himself.
Do not have that alternate, by the way.
All right. I won't have an alternate, but if I need an alternate, I'll make sure that it's on the record at a regularly scheduled council meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, just let me just put on the record, down a point that I had a conversation with Mr. Arakelian, who recommended me to be my own appointment because he indicated that many mayors serve as municipal representative on the community development board. So that's why I'm doing it. All right, next we have 4 items on the work session consent agenda. Does anybody wish to pull out for separate consideration any of the items? No? Good. Can I have a motion to just approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstained? All right, good. There's supposed to be on the agenda for the work session a fire siren subcommittee report. I don't think that there was any fire siren subcommittee meeting, but I'll open it for discussion.
I just kind of wanted, I was talking to Tom Lawler, who is the representative for Kensington, and I was talking to Chief Malley about it, and we're going to table it and have our own discussion on it and bring it back to you guys, if that's good.
Okay, good.
Let me know when that happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
There is Alan, you want to report on, for your information, the direct install program, and I think it's called Smart Start?
Yes, Mayor, you brought this to my attention that PSE&G has a direct install program for buildings that have a peak demand of 150 kilowatts or less. I'm not quite sure what our peak demand is here in Borough Hall. I reached out to a couple of our professionals to see if that information was part of the Public Safety Building Generator, or HVAC, research. We can certainly pull the bills, and then we can file an application on behalf of the borough and see whether some of our HVAC expenses would be covered by this program.
Okay, this is a, Ed.
I was just at a seminar on this last week,
Right.
on the updated program, and they've increased the incentives. It's a 70-30%
Right,
cost share.
70%.
But the limiting factor is that it's limited to physical equipment. It's replacing in-kind units. So if you have a 10-ton AC unit, they'll replace a 10-ton AC unit. Like we want to do in this building when we're talking about replacing piping, that would not be covered under this program. Neither would be the type of alternative boiler that our consultant recommended for us to use, the refrigerating type system. But the process would be, we would call Lime Energy, who's this regional subcontractor. They would come in and do a building-by-building evaluation to see if any of the buildings, one, fit the criteria, and two, what does, what would be applicable under their funding mechanism for
Right,
various
right.
aspects. So we may want to just
Do you
ask
think
them to come in.
Do you think it's worthwhile?
Sure, I mean, they come in for free,
Yeah.
and they'll go building by building, and if it's a generator, or if it's usually it's air conditioner unit, boilers, that's basically what they're limited to right now, but
But if it could defray even part of the cost of the HVAC upgrade that we're considering, it would be worthwhile, right?
it would be, but I believe, when I asked them about this, it's basically in-kind replacement, so going to the new system that was, what we would have to do in this building would go back to one of the other alternatives, which was replacing the existing system we have, the two-pipe system. If we replaced that, they would pay for the new boilers and the AC units. If we go to the refrigerant-type units, they wouldn't pay for that necessarily.
All right, well,
But I said that we were to get Lime Energy to come in and do their evaluation and at least find out.
Al?
This might be applicable for the library, where they're
Yes,
replacing
yes.
their HVAC system, so that would be an in-kind.
Would Lime Energy go over there as well?
They would go to every borough building.
So can we make a motion to have Lime Energy come in and do an audit? Okay, I make a motion for them to come in and do an audit.
This building and the library?
yep.
They can look at all the buildings, they just give you recommendations, you don't have to abide by any of their recommendations.
Yeah, I just don't want to be in a position where, because we're giving them so many buildings to do, that it delays their report on this particular building that we've already done the specs on it. We've already done the assessment of the system. Now I think didn't we award to design the specs to?
No.
We didn't award that yet?
I can report on the progress there.
Okay.
There was a meeting with John Lynch, Councilman Mignon, and myself briefly with the professional to go over the alternatives with the Superintendent of Public Works. He's looked at them. I know he has some concerns about the recommendation of the professional, but he wanted more information from him, and he wanted sites to visit as well as other references to speak to. Just the other day, I did see that there was a response to that request. So I'm not sure where I stand with John Lynch at this point in time, whether he's gotten that information, we pass it on to him. But there's more due diligence that John Lynch will have to do before he can make a recommendation on this, so he feels comfortable.
Was that information, the response, was that included in our, I didn't see that in our correspondence.
No, I don't believe we passed it on to the mayor and council. It had some manufacturing representatives, a couple of locations, New York State, so I have to talk to John about following up on that and doing some additional research on the recommendation of the professional.
If I just want to expand, Mr. Lynch's concern is about the long-term maintenance of the system. The system that was proposed, it's not a new technology per se, but it's relatively new to the United States. It's only been in practice for the less than 10 years. The consultant, when we asked him how many systems like this he's designed, he said this would be his third one, as opposed to hundreds of standard kind of designs. Right. So John wanted to talk to some or similar type buildings which are operating under the system, just to get some feedback as to how it's going operation-wise and maintenance requirements, and just to get a little more comfort in scrapping a tried and true conventional system with something that's a little bit different and not very common in the United States at this point.
It's like a heat pump, right?
In essence, but instead of a hot water, it's a refrigerant type system that they use, and according to the consultant, and from what I've read also, it does seem to be trending upwards in terms of architects specifying it on new buildings and things, but there's just not a lot of existing installations around here, and a lot of more established practice and knowing what the long-term operational issues are and the costs involved, and that's what John was trying to get a little better handle on before he feels comfortable recommending that we go with that kind of system.
Kathleen?
So this direct install, what would the savings be if we were just to do in-kind?
Well, they would pay 70% of the cost, but they wouldn't pay for
brand
replacing the
new-
piping.
right.
No, so they'll replace the units. The direct install is basically geared towards hardware, and it's the actual physical components of the system. But if we have to replace piping in the wall, that part would not be covered under the direct
How
install.
much do you think how much is the unit? Do we know?
Don't know.
We don't know.
Ed, you were concerned that we should invite them to come and do an assessment of all of our buildings, and the mayor was concerned that this might delay what we're trying to do in this building. I'm wondering, can we ask them to come and do this building and the library, and then a month later come and ask them to
I
do the other
don't know
building?
how busy they are now. They seem to be pretty anxious to get new towns signed up. I know we did this in Fort Lee. I called them one week, they were here the next week, and we had a report a week later.
Oh, so
So
that's
they move
very
pretty quickly.
timely.
And there's no harm in asking them to come to this building first. They do the reports building by building. You don't get one aggregate report anyway, so they do it on, at least that's the way they handle it in Fort Lee. They gave us, but we asked them to look at lighting, and we asked them to look at other things, because in Fort Lee, we actually have another grant, a federal grant, that we're able to use to match against the borough's required match. So essentially, it was free for Fort Lee. The state match versus the federal grant we had was zero. Here, we'd have to pay the 30% because we don't have an offsetting grant for that.
But they seem to be very accommodating, and
Yes.
we could ask them to
I think they would come here,
expedite
yes.
this
I
building.
mean, if we called them tomorrow, I bet they would be here within the week. At least, I mean, and there was a representative from BPU also at this seminar I was at, and he was trying to get the word out. The league just sent out a notice that these programs are out there. They're really trying to, what they're afraid of is they have a big pot of money, which they did not spend.
Oh.
And the governor says, if you don't spend it, we're going to
Take it
take it
back.
back. So BPU is saying, we have these incentives out there. There's a residential program too, which we could talk about another time. But for the towns, are saying, get the towns to at least do these audit parts and take advantage of some of the incentives that are there now.
Okay. So is there a motion to go forward with
Yes.
getting the audit
There's a motion.
of the Borough Hall and the library and any other buildings?
I think start with those
Is there a
two.
second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, very good. Thank you, Mayor. All right, any unfinished business? Any new business?
Yes, Mayor. I was speaking with an architect the other day, who's a friend of the family, and he's from River Edge. He's a Riverdale graduate, and he expressed to me that as part of his licensing requirements, he's required to do a certain amount of community service. And he asked if there was anything in the borough that he could possibly do. And I spoke to him about possibly coming up with conceptual drawings for a type of community center attached to the library. And he was absolutely willing to do it. It's totally free. It's part of his community service, and he's willing to do it. And I just wanted to bring that to the council, and if there has to be some type of motion from the council to allow him to do it. He's local. He's located in Paramus, and like I said, he is from River Edge. So I thought it'd be
Are you able to
great.
give his name?
Yeah, his name's Christopher Canzani. The business is Canzani Associates. They're located on East Ridgewood Avenue in Paramus.
Can you spell Canzani for me?
Sure, it's C-A-N-Z-A-N-I.
Thank you.
You can go to their website.
How many hours does he need to put in order to get this community service?
Well, he needs to put in 80. I don't think it would take 80 hours for him to come up with some conceptual drawings, but...
So can
like
he do
I said-
something else for 40 other hours?
I don't know. I didn't ask him. I didn't want to, monopolize his time. He was asking what he could do, and I told him. So, like I said, it's free. He seemed to like that. So, I'll just make that motion to allow him to go and draft conceptual drawings of the community center near the library, or attached to the library.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? Doesn't cost us anything, why not? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstained?
Mayor,
Yes.
going back to unfinished business, I talked to Alan the other day, I just wanted him to, we talked about the process of the American Legion. Could you just repeat,
Yes, we received a response to the request for a proposal for the Phase 1. Tonight, you've approved on the consent agenda the award of a contract to Brinkerhoff Environmental Services. There is a resolution listed tonight, 12-206. Upon approval, we will send them a contract tomorrow and ask them to proceed with the Phase 1. Funds are available.
Okay.
thank you.
Mayor,
Yes.
just one other thing about this. It seems we put a claim in for mold, and we were denied. And part of what they said was because the building wasn't maintained, that they were denying the claim. How much was this claim for?
Well, we're disputing that claim, and our risk consultant will be taking that up on appeal with the Joint Insurance Fund. So I can't say too much about that right now, as it's going to be under appeal.
Do you know when we might hear back about that?
The Joint Insurance Fund has monthly meetings, and I'm not sure when it'll be scheduled before the coverage committee, so it could be June, it might be July.
Any other unfinished business? Any new business? All right. Can I have a motion to open the meeting to the public?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we have, the meeting's open to the public. If any member of the public would like to speak at our work session, they can stand and give us their name and address and be heard. All right, seeing no one, do I have a motion to close the hearing of the public?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, we have, 2 minutes before the 8 o'clock meeting, right?
Yep.
All right. Can I have, and then we're going to go into closed session after the public meeting?
Correct.
All right. All right, we could take a, let me have a motion to adjourn the work session.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. All right, we'll just take a 2-minute break.